Tonight, a years-long journey to justice and a search for answers surrounding the death of 79-year-old Rena Beamer. Beamer was last seen alive in South Carolina in 2017. In the years that followed, a missing persons investigation turned into a series of shocking crimes. It all came to a head in 2022 when Rena's remains were found. Investigators say her own daughter, Beth Beamer, dumped her body and stole her Social Security benefits for several years. No one was ever charged with her death, though. WBTV's Caroline Hicks has spent months tracking down the facts and speaking with investigators across North and South Carolina, as well as Beamer's family, working to answer this question: what happened to Rena Beamer? And a warning of discretion to you at home watching. There are details of abuse in this story you may find disturbing.
Like, there's my mom.
Photos are all that are left for Lisa Cook to hold on to.
It's harder every time I come out here.
Lisa took us to the site where the remains of her mother, Rena, were eventually found, down an embankment on the side of this winding mountain road.
I just don't understand.
For years, Lisa collected case files, taking meticulous notes, searching for answers surrounding what led to her mother's death.
Take me back to the beginning. When was the last time that you saw your mother?
January of 2017.
Lisa says Rena and her sister Beth Beamer would move from place to place, at times living with Beth's daughters, Tabitha Shook and Madeline Ballard.
And it's very hard for me because I feel like I failed my mom in a lot of ways.
She says Beth came up with excuses for why she could not see her mother until she stopped taking her calls altogether.
Beth designed it that way. Beth designed it so that people wouldn't miss my mom. Like, anybody that got close to the truth, Beth cut off communication with and would disappear.
In 2020, Lisa decided to contact the Greenville County Sheriff's Office. But not just anyone with the Sheriff's Office. She called Detective Joe Parrish because she knew her mother lived in his Malden, South Carolina home at some point in 2017, along with Beth and her daughters. Parrish's son shares a child with Madeline Ballard.
Detective Parrish had said that he was trying to wade through the BS, but if it turned into a missing persons investigation, then he would have to step out because it's conflict of interest.
But that's not what happened. And by June of 2021, Parrish would be fired from the sheriff's office. To learn what really happened, we went to Greenville to sit down with the sheriff and the investigator on this case.
Basically, Joe should have known when she went missing, which is really what they told Joe, was that they took her to a friend's house. But there was no follow-up to that.
We obtained a copy of the Internal Affairs investigative file, which says Parrish failed to assist in the missing person case that he had first-hand knowledge of.
They're in his home and they're living there, and he allowed that. He had to see what was going on as far as the neglect. She was in a pretty terrible state, for sure.
The missing person investigation would lead to a much bigger investigation.
So when you're investigating all of this, at this point you don't know that Rena Beamer is dead, you just think she's missing?
We're running down these stories that she's telling us. She's at a friend's house in North Carolina. Well, guess what? That friend was deceased months prior to her disappearance in August. So obviously that's the first story, her primary story, that doesn't pan out.
He says interviews with Beth consisted of lie after lie.
She tried to tell us when we initially talked to her that we saw her, that she had just seen her mother a couple months before we talked to her in a parking lot of Walmart in North Carolina.
Once they began interviewing Beth's daughters, he says there were even more lies.
Hey, none of this stuff is adding up.
At the same time, horrific abuse came to light. Almost 300 pages of investigative notes paint a chilling picture of Rena's life with Beth. According to family members, Rena could not care for herself. She needed to wear a diaper and had to be fed and bathed by others. While living in a cabin in Nebo, North Carolina, Tabitha told investigators Beth would tie a rope around a post and to the bedroom door to keep her from coming out. Another witness told investigators Beth said when Rena went to the bathroom on herself that she washed her with Clorox bleach and scrubbed her with a scouring pad. And just days before Rena is believed to have died,
Tabitha says that her mother stomps on her grandmother's hand, causing a wound where you can actually see bones exposed, and that because of the state of mind that her grandmother was in, that she was actually rubbing feces in that.
It was not until May of 2021 that Beth admitted her mother was dead. She was arrested in Lincolnton, North Carolina for violating probation. She had several previous convictions of using fraudulent checks.
And so once she was in custody and she was interviewed up in North Carolina, up in Lincolnton, that's when, after a fairly lengthy interview, that she disclosed that she had lied to us.
A change of story.
And that her mom had died in the Parrish household, and that she disposed of her body somewhere in the mountains of Tryon, North Carolina.
And major turn in the investigation. They determined Rena died in August of 2017. But in another twist, her Social Security checks kept going to Beth.
I got a call from Social Security, and they said they had gotten an anonymous tip and they wanted to talk to me. They had phone evidence of my sister calling in and pretending to be my mom.
And coming up next.
I would actually like to sit down with her and ask her why, but at the same time, I don't know that she would ever tell me the truth.
The story continues. A letter written from jail from the daughter accused of dumping her mother's body. What she told our Caroline Hicks when WBTV's investigation into what happened to Rena Beamer continues. On Your Side Tonight continues now. Before the break, we introduce you to Rena Beamer, a 79-year-old woman who was believed to be missing, but later found dead on the side of a road. Investigators say her own daughter Beth dumped her body and continued to collect her Social Security checks. WBTV reporter Caroline Hicks has spent months uncovering the many layers to this crime story.
Yeah, that's right, Jamie. And investigators actually determined that Beth stole almost $70,000 in Social Security checks for about 3 years after her mother's death. Records show they were spent on things like fast food and Netflix. And leading up to her death, not a dime actually went to Rena's medical care.
So Beth told investigators her mother is dead, but for quite a while, we didn't know where her body is?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And at one point, Beth actually takes investigators to a wrong location. But finally, as you will hear next, Tabitha ends up taking them to the body.
Beamer, I'm Judge O'Brien. I'm going to read you your rights, and I'm going to talk to you about the charges that are placed on you.
In June of 2021, Beth Beamer went before a judge in Greenville County.
Do you understand so far?
Yes, sir.
Lisa Cook visibly upset, watching the proceedings from a gallery.
Because of the serious nature of the charges, I am going to no bond you, and I'm going to send you to the circuit court for a bond hearing.
Beth faced a slew of charges that she would later plead guilty to, including unauthorized removal of a dead body. Madeline Ballard would also plead guilty to filing a false police report, and Tabitha Shook would plead guilty to unauthorized removal of a body and obstruction. At the time Beth was put behind bars in Greenville, investigators were still determined to find Rena Beamer's body. Lisa Cook wanted to give her mother a proper burial.
The length of time that had passed was so significant, there was a real concern that we wouldn't be able to give them that closure of some human remains.
That's when investigator Neil Mitchell with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office shared his team's evidence with the Sheriff's Office in McDowell County, North Carolina, where some of the allegations of abuse happened in a cabin in Nebo. I went to McDowell County to speak with the assistant district attorney who would help close this case.
I negotiated an agreement with Tabitha's lawyer where she'd give a full and truthful interview as well as lead law enforcement to those remains, that we would give her some consideration when it came time for plea negotiations.
According to records of that interview, she says Beth found Rena dead one morning in August 2017 in the house owned by Detective Joe Parrish in Malden, South Carolina. Tabitha claims she said, "You need to call 911. You need to call an ambulance." Instead, she says she watched as Beth wrapped her body in a bundle of tarp and pulled her down the stairs, while Madeline goes and flips the security camera on the mantle down. She says Beth put her body in their van and told Tabitha to ride with her. They would travel across state lines, finally dumping her body over this guardrail on the side of Highway 176 near Saluda, North Carolina. Investigator Mitchell remembers the moment Tabitha finally led them to this spot.
Within probably seconds, one of the other investigators said, "Hey, I think I see a bone." So it was visible from the road after 5 years, or almost 6 years.
It's also a day Lisa Cook will never forget.
Today they called me and told me that Mom was deceased and they had thrown her away like trash.
Heartbreak and confusion that still lingers now.
I would actually like to sit down with her and ask her why, but at the same time, I don't know that she would ever tell me the truth.
It's a question I asked her. I sent a letter to Beth Beamer to the prison where she's serving an 18-month sentence in Raleigh. She responded in a 5-page letter answering all of my questions.
First, I asked her why she abused her mother. She denied it, saying, "I had to accept charges because in doing that, I thought it would be over."
By the time Tabitha made it here, I think that she was ready to put this behind us, and Beth was in a position where I think she just was ready to get over with as well too. So we were able to get felony pleas out of both of them.
I also asked how her mother died. She said she passed away in her sleep, and it had been a night like any other, nothing out of the ordinary. A claim investigator Mitchell does not buy.
So you don't believe that she died of natural causes?
No, I don't believe it. There's some inconsistent statements there, but again, because so much time has elapsed and we were never able to, discover what the cause of death was. By the time the remains were discovered, they had degraded, obviously, over almost 6 years.
As for why she dumped her mother's body, she does not deny that, but justifies it, writing, "First of all, I did not just leave her on the side of the road somewhere. I took her to a place that she and I used to frequent. Sometimes we would stop at McDonald's and take food to eat there, and other times we just sat there, listening to the water." Going on to say, "I panicked when I found that she had passed for reasons that a few know about, and I will leave it at that." Was it the right thing to do? Of course not. But what's done is done, and unfortunately we cannot go back and change our pasts.
So here we are, 2023. Beth is in prison.
Yes.
Are you satisfied? Do you feel like justice has been served?
Has everyone involved been held accountable? Absolutely not. Will they be? Maybe not in this plane, but in the next one they will be.
This is not the first time Lisa has pulled over on this winding highway to leave flowers.
I guess this was the end of her journey, so.
The scene of a tragic ending, but also one of closure.
I am grateful that they found something so that we can ultimately do right by Mom, because she deserved better. Any human being deserves better.
Now, I posed that same question to Greenville County investigators. Do they feel like justice has been served? They told me it's a win that Beth Beamer is in prison, as she was walking around not facing consequences for several years after her mother's death. But they say they are also frustrated because some of the more serious charges she faced, like abuse resulting in death and destruction of human remains, were dismissed by the solicitor for insufficient evidence.
Caroline, so many characters in this story. Where are all these people today?
Absolutely. Well, we know that Tabitha Shook is out of jail. Madeline Ballard did not serve time. She was sentenced to probation. I did contact both of them for comment on this story, but did not get a response. I also contacted Deputy Joe Parrish. Now, he never faced any criminal charges. His wife told me he did not have a comment. Meanwhile, Beth is in prison on the federal conviction of stealing Social Security benefits and concealing evidence of a death in Polk County. She is set to be released this December.
Incredible in-depth reporting. Caroline, thanks for sharing it with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.